In the Vedic scriptures, it talks about the Kali Yuga. You know, we go into these deep, dark places and then we come out into a golden era. And I think that's what we're going through.
Expansion of our idea of the human potential. And I think for a lot of people, when they experience a Vipassana meditation retreat, your idea of what you're capable of and who you can be expands, and your ability to dream expands. I think the same thing happens with ayahuasca for people. I think the same thing happens with deep yoga practice.
Cleanse and detox protocols are now a survival mechanism. Having binders and chelators in your blood on a regular and constant basis, and then cleaning out the organs a couple of times a year is essential for survival currently.
In the Vedic age, the radicals were the yogis, were the Vedas, the Ayurveda. There were people that were doing, autopsies on bodies when people thought they were crazy. There were the people that were naked and doing fasts in the forest.
The yogis and the Taoists figured this out a very, very long time ago, and these are technologies that are effective. The mirror and the toilet bowl are the best diagnostic tools that I know of.
Welcome everybody. We are super hyped up to have Troy Casey here, kind of like a non-conventional yogi, truth seeker, and just has beautiful views on like society, where we're going, and just from a global wellness perspective, and we're super excited to have him here. Jeremy, you want to talk about maybe how you met Troy and kind of what we're bringing to the table?
Yeah, we met Troy out in Joshua Tree when we were filming for Bhakti Fest. We reached out to him and asked about collaborating on a short film about his life and kind of how he's found his way to doing what he does. He has a really fascinating journey that he's gone through if you've seen Troy on social media, you've probably seen him under the name Certified Health Nut. So we made a short film of how he went from, actually Troy, maybe we let you kind of tell a little bit of your background to just introduce yourself of how you came to be doing what you're doing. But we made a short film with Troy, kind of telling a little bit of his life story and some of his teachings sharing, that will be on Ire Prana Plus next month, that we're really excited about. We had a lot of fun making it and editing it, and pretty psyched to share it with everyone. But Troy, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself with a little bit of your background of where you started with your modeling career and how that led into your early YouTube, health hack sharing journey.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and Mitesh and Jeremy. It's great to see you guys. And so my name's Troy Casey. I'm known as a Certified Health Nut online. My mission is to raise human consciousness and change all systems. My vision is clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind in my lifetime. Big part of my awakening was I was in Milan, Italy. I was a Versace model, and I had some digestion issues, and I was bloating, and that was affecting my career. And I went down to the English bookstore and bought books on nutrition, and I knew nothing about nutrition. And Italy had farmers markets, and I'd never been to a farmers market. And I started eating whole foods, fruits and vegetables, and I instantly got results. One of the books I read was Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. It's a family heirloom from the 1800s. And he talked about fasting and herbal teas. And I came home to the United States and did my first 10-day juice cleanse, bought a juicer, and I got amazing results. And so 35 years later, I still have an affinity towards herbs, herbal medicine, herbal cleansing. I worked in the Amazon with an herbal company for many years. About 2006, I went down there for the first time to the Amazon rainforest in Peru, and I drank ayahuasca with the Shipibo Indians. They were our vendors for the herbs. They harvested a lot of the herbs that are good for inflammation and immune system, immune function, etc., adaptogenic herbs. And so I had three very profound visions when I was in the Amazon. One was an amalgamation of my on-camera career. I've been in front of the camera for 35 years. And I was doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles at the time, and I been studying natural medicine since the first time I started fasting and eating whole foods. And the amalgamation of all of that came together, and the certified health nut was born in the Amazon. And we've seen that unfold on the internet. Last 18 years I was on YouTube. I did just get censored off of YouTube.
Oh no.
Congratulations.
It's a very sign of the times, right? Because natural medicine is not subsidized by the insurance companies or the biggest lobby in the world, which is the pharmaceutical drug lobby. And so the tech platforms have become very trigger happy, and so I did get my whole work on YouTube got censored, but luckily one of my team backed it up onto Rumble. And so if you scroll back all the way to the beginning, I was working in the Amazon, and then I chose to have my son, which was my second vision was the spirit of my daughter came to me. And I wasn't married, I wasn't in a relationship at the time. And I came home and started a family, and that's been unfolding. Certified Health Nut's been unfolding. So both those visions are manifest in the flesh, right? And so the third vision is that humanity makes it from the edge of, ecological collapse, if you will. And so I when I came out of the jungle, I saw mountains of sawdust and 2x4 on barges going up to Home Depot, right? And I realized that as a man, that I have a responsibility for the world that I live in. And so I vowed to make a difference. And basically what you've seen on social media, because you have to do the dance, right? Hey, natural food and natural medicine has application and value. And here's a bunch of indigenous people that have done natural healing in the past, and I interviewed the Indians when I was down in the Amazon. I worked with Maori healers for many years, and so this has all been unfolding on social media, and just getting information out about organic food as much as possible. And then my children came. I did natural childbirth with my son. That got some popularity early on. I had water birth in my living room, and so really just bringing awareness of our innate intelligence and our ancestral, wisdom, and, primordial and, perennial wisdom, really. And so I had some challenges in my modeling career as well. I was chasing paper, and I talk a lot about this in my book. I didn't know who I was or where I was going. I didn't have a purpose. And I was just out there trying to make money, and that was a dead-end road. I got caught up in alcohol. We see what's happening with the Diddy parties right now, and there was an air of that in the fashion industry. And so, and I wasn't interested in playing any kind of games or sexual innuendos. I was just there to do it, the good old collegiate spirit. I was blessed with some good genetics. I wanted to keep them as clean as possible and do as many big fashion shoots as I could and make a career for myself. And I realized that there was a little bit more gatekeeping and sexual games that were played, and it ate away at my soul. But in that industry, the nightclubs and the drugs and alcohol are everywhere. And so I drank a lot and did drugs in Miami, and I had a rock star phase, a big party phase of my life. And I sobered up. I found Vipassana meditation. S.N. Goenka is my teacher. And I sat 11 Vipassana courses in a span of about 6 years and was meditating 2 hours a day. That revolutionized my life. That was one of the main things that got me grounded. Then I started working with the Herbal company in the Amazon and drinking ayahuasca with the Shipibo Indians. That helped me wake up as well. And then I started working with indigenous Maori healers from New Zealand, and I witnessed many miracles working with them. These were some of the biggest catalysts in my own awakening. And from there, then having a family and now a business, a big business online. And so my business and my family is a big part of my spiritual life. It's what drives me towards excellence. And then when I started meditating, I started practicing Ashtanga yoga as well. And so I was going to Mysore classes, and I got great results from that as well. That was a big part of my awakening. And so, my understanding from studying meditation, studying yoga, my interpretation of yoga is the union, the etymology of yoga is the union of body and mind, or the union, as above, so below, the union of the cosmos, that's inside of us. And I like to say that we are an embodied process. We are the sum total of our ideas. So if I pick up an idea or a practice, I have to implement it and integrate it and embody it into my life. Otherwise, I'm just a talking head. So most of my work is about integration and embodiment. And this is what I teach my students as well. And I think that all of life is spiritual, ultimately, when we wake up to life. So that's a bit about my philosophy and my journey.
We have, like I said earlier, before we started, we have people that are seeking for wellness and health and meaning and spirituality. And it seems like you have such a beautiful vision and mission that you just articulated for people that are struggling with, a lot of times we're like, hey, I'm going to do 10 push-ups tomorrow. But then you might have a little bit of congestion and be like, you know what? Maybe I'll do it the next day, and so on and so forth. But the volition definitely is there for our evolution of our health, of our being. What advice do you have? There's little demons that are popping up that people are struggling with, and how we can get through that and start walking the path.
The biggest work that I have for my students, my objective is to simplify everything for myself. And I realized that I was off base, again, chasing paper and then getting caught up in the world of things. And so I bring it back to purpose, dream, legacy. What does my heart desire? And so when we have a big enough dream, we don't need a crisis, whether that's a health crisis or psychological drama, etc. And so I always come back to, and I teach myself, and I had my own episode yesterday with my team, right? And so I get to come back, what is my purpose? What is my dream? And I stated my mission earlier. My mission is to raise human consciousness. I'm a human, right? So I get to raise my consciousness every day. When I fall off the train, then I go back to the basics, whether that's quiet time for myself, walking, etc. Very simple practices I have. The main thing that I recommend everyone out there do is write your eulogy. I put this in the first chapter in my book, but write your eulogy. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, they talk about memento mori. Meditate on your death. Death is a part of life. The question is, do we accept life? Because death is a part of it, right? And so I think when we meditate on that aspect and we have the gift of the presence that we have right now, the present moment, whatever we have in life, then we can come back to utilizing it. And so I think, there's been some good teachers in the past. Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning. We are gifted this life, and there is yin and yang. We are dealing with Shakti and Shiva all the time, right? These are the two forces that are guiding us. And the ancient sages have always said, walk the middle path, walk the razor's edge, right? Balance. And so understanding this as much as possible and coming back to balance. But putting your flag in the ground, write your eulogy, embellish it, become the author of your own life, become the authority of your own life. This is the life that, God forbid your parents have to read your eulogy or your best friend. This is the life that my friend lived. He put his stake in the ground, Sir Edmund Hillary wanting to climb Mount Everest, or, Bruce Lee, he wanted to bring the martial arts, to the rest of the world. And so put that stake in the ground, figure out your purpose, not your mind. This is the trap. The mind wants to monetize it because we live in a world with these magical pieces of paper that don't have any intrinsic value. And so figure out what the heart desires. And I have realized over the years that, at the heart level, all human beings want peace. 6% of the people have a propensity towards being a psychopath. So there's an addendum to that conversation, right? But we all want peace at the heart level, ultimately. And so, and then what else is in there? What is your je ne sais quoi? What is your joie de vivre? What brings you joy? What is your effortless genius? What is so simple and so easy? Sometimes just loving kindness towards children. Some people are like teachers or psychologists. Some people like to grow food. Some people like to cook food. There's tons of cooking shows out there, right? And so everyone has their own unique presence. Accountant, if you ever talk to an accountant, a lot of those people, they love the accounting, the numbers. I can't stand it myself. And most people are afraid of public speaking. I don't have a problem with that, right? And so we all have our unique gifts. And so I encourage everyone to find those, figure out what the heart desires, and then program the mind, because the mind is a tool to cut through the fabric of reality. And so that is a big part of my curriculum.
I love it. We talk a lot here about inspiration versus motivation, and it sounds like you're so inspiration driven. Can you elaborate a little bit, if you don't mind, on your mission and vision? Because I think there's so many layers of why you've chosen those things, and maybe that will give people insight into what drives them, their inspiration as well.
So a lot of where I've come from my stated purpose, I am statement, legacy statement, comes from reverse engineering, right? So part of my statement, if I was to state it in full, is I am a kind, I'm a gentle, kind, I am a humble, kind, and gentle man. My mission is to raise human consciousness and change all systems. My vision is clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind in my lifetime. So I have been impatient. I have been short-tempered. I have been, all of the opposite. My shadow looks like that. So I call forth more balance. I'm humble, kind, and gentle, right? And so I don't need to be like energetic and powerful. Some people need that, right? They one of the exercises I did one time to discover that is like a Tony Robbins exercise. And, you want to make like you want to get into the body and state it, I am powerful. Like, I don't need that, right? I'm already that. I'm already too much for a lot of people. And so I'm a humble, kind, and gentle man. And then again, my stated mission is to raise human consciousness. I postulate that we can do things in a more balanced way. We don't have to have these industrial compounds with forced bonds. We can align with biomimicry. Life creates conditions conducive for life. A spider will take something in its local environment in an aqueous solution at room temperature and make something 5 times the strength of steel. And coral reefs are similar. And so when we align our engineering with nature-based technologies and we use materials from the environment instead of these industrial forced bonds that create industrial waste, I postulate that we can do things in a balanced way. Now, Nikola Tesla was onto free energy. I don't know what the Egyptians, the Mayans, Göbekli Tepe, Easter Island. There's some megalithic structures around here that were built with either harmonics or electrogravitics or zero-point technology. All I know is there's some phenomenon that has been on this planet before, and they exist in the pyramids. And I do believe if those pyramids can be built in a certain way, then we can access that level of consciousness and build harmonious systems that are based in some type of free energy, where we don't have to use energy in such a destructive way, meaning we don't have to go to war at faraway lands with people that have natural resources off them and push them off their land and create refugees and imperialism and colonialism, etc. I do believe that we can free mankind. The 4 human needs are water, food, fire, and shelter. Fire is represented with technology right now. And Nikola Tesla was already on to some really hot technologies, harmless, wireless, and abundant free energy, right, for everyone. And so JP Morgan burnt down his laboratory in Long Island because they couldn't meter it, or Tesla wanted it to be free, right, for the people. And so, so change all systems, right? We've got farming. We can do better with organic. That is proven systems. BritishSoilAssociation.org has all the information on that. Joel Salatin, Polyface Farms, has the information on organic regenerative farming. This is a no-brainer. We're just subsidizing industries that are part of the war machine and the oligarchy. We live in a top-down petrodollar system with oil and petrochemical byproducts in ag and petrochemical byproducts in drugs. And so these are all receptacles for this oil industry. And so I don't like to be so extreme and bad and good. Like, oil has brought manifest destiny. Okay, we have conquered nature. We have manifest destiny now, and we're facing the precipice of ecological disaster and societal collapse. I postulate we can do things in a balanced way. We can provide enough for everyone. I think there's a good idea to teach self-care education in the schools. And I also think part of that is mental health and understanding memento mori, and that we all have gifts and we're all going to die. And I think the children are very important, as well as the elders who possess all the wisdom. And we've just gotten so far out of balance for this commercialism, for the almighty dollar. And I postulate the pendulum swings both ways. And I think in the Vedic scriptures, it talks about the Kali Yuga. We go into these deep, dark places, and then we come out into a golden era. And I think that's what we're going through right now. I can only pray and imagine that's what we're going through, because I truly believe that humanity has so much more to give. And Einstein said we're only using 5% of our brain. And he also said you can't solve a problem with the same level of mind that created it. And so I've been sharing my ideas in a world beyond money, in a world beyond oil for years, especially with NGOs that want to save the rainforest. And there's so much misguided information as they're pumping gasoline in their vehicle to go to the protest, and they don't understand the disconnect. Or we're all using these cell phones, and then there's young Africans pulling it out of the earth at 5 years old, like slave labor, or oil, or displacement from oil, Sudan, Rwanda, these coups d'etats, the Venezuela, the Libya, the Syria, the Afghanistan, the Iraq. No one's free until we're all free. And, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet. And I postulate that we can live in peace and harmony, and we can create that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
One of the things I love hearing you talk about is kind of this human expansion of our idea of the human potential. And I think for a lot of people, when they experience a Vipassana meditation retreat, your idea of what you're capable of and who you can be expands, and your ability to dream expands. I think the same thing happens with ayahuasca for people. I think the same thing happens with deep yoga practice. And I think this moment in time that we're in, where we are bombarded by poisons in our bodies that clog our neural pathways and our potential for awakening, where all of the systems in place around us I kind of feel like they're trying to keep us down. I feel like you've really been able to express a nice way for people to cut through to something more ancestral and something more, you used the word primordial earlier. What are the kind of main points that you've been able to share with people for how to remove themselves from the systems of poison that we're subjected to by living in this moment of time?
Well, I think your curse is your gift, right? If we've got the two forces that are guiding everything. So I had digestive problems 35 years ago, And I've become an expert on detoxification, internal purification, fasting, herbal medicine, juice cleansing, etc. And so I've aligned with one of my business partners who's had farms, and he was given the legacy of Anne Wigmore, who is the mother of wheatgrass, and she gave him grains of kamut that he then planted on volcanic ash beds in Utah, and he's been farming that for 30 plus years. And he has simplified a system that helps to clean out the gut microbiome, as well as the blood, the liver, the kidneys, and the colon. And I think, fasting traditionally was a spiritual endeavor, and cleanse and detox for a while there was really like a health protocol. Only the health nuts I know would do stuff like that. Still to this day, it's still a little bit obscure. Now, if you listen to Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt and Dr. Mercola in April of 2021, he's the #1 guy on Lyme's disease and autoimmune, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. They are saying that cleanse and detox protocols are now a survival mechanism. Having binders and chelators in your blood on a regular and constant basis, and then cleaning out the organs a couple of times a year, is essential for survival currently. And I am living testament to that. I've been practicing some form of cleanse and detox. I've been doing 3 to 4 fasts, liver flushes, parasite cleanses, 3 to 4 times a year for the past 35 years. And I'm here to tell you that I am living testament of that. I hear the internet is always like, oh, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, and organic food doesn't matter, and detox doesn't work. Your body already detoxes it. Yes, that's true. The food and nutrition that you eat assists the body in flushing bile secretion through the liver. For example, citric acid to help break down kidney stones and excess calculi formations. There are cleanse and detox protocols that we've been so far removed. How about a sauna? How about sweating in a Mysore class, right? These are purifying the vessel, right? Purifying the temple. You can receive more light when the body is purified. And so it takes 120 days to rebuild the red blood cells. It takes 6 to 9 months to regenerate the organs. Our cells are always turning over. And you can see how well you're doing that by simply looking in the mirror. People are trying to sell you blood tests and genetic tests right now. The mirror and the toilet bowl are the best diagnostic tools that I know of. And if you're not getting the results that you desire, then emulate from a teacher that does have those. My mentor is Paul Chek. He's the biggest strength training coach in the world, and he's one of the top guys in rehabilitation, spinal cord, etc. He can lift very heavy weights. I think he's almost 65 right now. And, living an organic lifestyle, living a cleanse and detox lifestyle, taking materials into the body that assists the liver, the kidneys, and the colon. This is age old. We used to hunt and gather. What were we gathering? Roots, barks, berries, leaves. We would make teas, extracts, and these nutrients were the unique nutrients that really aren't in our food supply today, because most of the food supply has been domesticated. We have apples, oranges, bananas and oranges come from the Amazon, right? They've been hybrided. Even our carrots and potatoes have been hybrided. There's about 15 fruits and vegetables that we eat dominantly. Well, Hippocrates said food is the medicine. But we got so far away from what that is and the nutritional value. And so I've been eating herbs for many years, and herbs are extremely powerful, very unique phytochemistry in herbal medicine. And so in herbal nutrition, if you will. So purify the vessel, I think, is the best thing that we can do. There's many ways to fast, right? You can go off of ultra-processed food. That's a fast, right? Eat only whole foods. You can go off gluten, dairy, corn, soy, etc. Those are known as inflammatory agents. Go on an inflammatory food fast. You can water fast. You can dry fast, which is I don't recommend it unless you're supervised and very well knowledgeable about it. But I have gotten incredible results from no water for multiple days. And then juice fasting seems to be the most cleansing that I have found, because why? It's taking in nutrition. A lot of us can't risk not having nutrition come in because the environment is so stressful. And so juice fasting is very nourishing and purifying at the same time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really interesting. You're hitting upon, we have 7 pillars. So our pillars are nutrition, cleansing, movement, sleep, connection, inspiration, and peace, which we correlate to meditation. I wanted to, one of the things Jeremy and I talk about a lot and we're working on over the next few years is this concept of connection. You know, so many people live in neighborhoods and they don't know their neighbor. You know, you don't know other people's grandpas. There's nothing multi-generational anymore. You know, back in the day in a village, you'd have people, you know, all the men may gather in a portion of the village and kind of like joke around and talk and philosophize. The women would, you know, maybe put like oil in the hairs of all the girls, and like it's just this whole concept of connection and community and interdependence beyond the industrial agriculture, industrial medicine that's being put out there. Is like, if Jeremy has chickens, he'll give me eggs. You know, if my wife is good at making paneer, she's gonna give him that. And this kind of like looking out for each other in this interconnected space, we feel that there's a social component of it that actually helps with our evolution and our healing. Have you formulated your thoughts regarding, and I think you talked about pharma and you talked about industrial agriculture, but have you thought about kind of like the mechanisms that to replace those? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
To replace the current systems that we have?
Yes, absolutely. So for example, if I need to go to a grocery store where things are being shipped from Florida and Mexico and all over the place, you could replace that system with an interconnected group of human beings, like a couple of farmers, like in your community, that's now are going to replace the industrial agriculture with something community-based, if that makes sense.
Yes. I mean, ultimately, we have a lot of work to do, and community is a huge component of longevity. And again, there's a double-edged sword with social media. It can disconnect us because we're all siloed and scrolling. However, it's also connecting us, right? It has actually done the job of connecting me to you guys and your audience. So it is a fantastic tool, right? I think it is, you know, a blessing for the most part. You know, like anything else, you want to use it intelligently. It's like a hammer can build a house, but it also can kill someone, right? So it comes down to balance. So community is very important. I have my own community, which is either on my social media where people communicate a lot, and we also have an educational platform, Knowledge of Self University. People can come there. I have live events. This weekend, I'm doing a community event here in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're going on a community hike. I think it is very important. I do a lot of networking. I just worked with Children's Health Defense, Bobby Kennedy's foundation this past weekend. Joel Salatin came out from your neck of the woods. He's from Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley, Polyface Farms. And we talked about regenerative farming. And there were a lot of lawyers. Mary Holland, who is the foundation, she runs the foundation. And then John Clark, who left his lawyer position and has a farm up in Vermont. So people are getting back to the land. People are homesteading. And I do believe it's a good idea to connect with people as much as possible. You can always do a community-supported agriculture system. You can either Google it and see what's in your neighborhood. You can get a truck and a driver once a week. He drives to all the farms in maybe 100 or 200 mile radius, or you can even go to the Amish farmers in Pennsylvania. We used to do that in California. And then you drive the food out, and then you can have a hub to pick it up. And oftentimes that can be part of the community. Food is very important. And so I do believe it's a good idea to wrap our heads around that as much as possible. I also know that the world is abundant. We are sold this scarcity model for fear, right? The commercial conduits and the media and the propaganda, we're dealing with psychological warfare right now. They play us against our hormones, fear and sex, right? And so they utilize these tools like there's not enough, right? And so, but the world is abundant. There's enough water, there's enough food to go around, and we just have to do things in a sustainable way and aligned with biomimicry. And so building community is huge, and you're already doing that. And I think more and more, the more outreach that we can do, and this is also a big part of my curriculum. I have 9 pillars, and one of the pillars is relationships. And we're seeing a lot of divide and conquer in our society today, and that is the psychological warfare by design as well. We must find some form of common ground. And I do understand that people are so divided right now, and there are some principles that are antithetical to life itself that is being propagated on the news media, confusing the biology and the gender and all that stuff. Not that all people aren't children of God, I get that, but shoving dysfunction down our throats as it is normalized is not conducive. That is divisive, right? And so, how to say this so that it doesn't become triggering, but life, I think respecting the natural life that we are given is very important. If we're going to sit here and bastardize and make everything into debauchery and make like genetically modified organisms and inject children with poison and then call it for the greater good, like this is programming us against our own biology, genealogy, psychology. This is gaslighting people, right? Because we all know in our heart of heart, we want to align with it's very hard to have these conversations because there is so much triggering information out there. And this last 4 years, let me just say this. Yuri Brezmenov came over here in the 80s. He was a KGB operative, journalist, and he also worked for the KGB. And he said and after World War I and World War II, there was so much destruction. And a lot of fathers died as well. And there was a lot of collateral damage in those beautiful European cities, and they didn't want as much. And so they studied a lot on psychological warfare. MK Ultra was one of the CIA's operation. And what we're seeing, and also the Russians and communism, the primary tenet is to divide and conquer. And one of the best ways to do that is to demoralize people and confuse them. And what we're seeing with the internet now is we have information overload. There's too much information. That's why I bring it back to fundamental principles. The body is mostly water. It's a good idea to have pure water. The body is made up of the earth, and that comes in the form of food, and your body's replicating itself. Having organic food is a good idea. The body needs to sleep, and it sleeps with the circadian rhythms or the celestial realm. And the body needs to move. The purpose of exercise is to move the lymphatic fluids. A stagnant body of water turns into a cesspool. So movement, exercise is a necessity, not a luxury. The body breathes. It's a good idea to optimize the diaphragm and make sure that you're nasal breathing. We have thoughts, and those thoughts can actually be very destructive. We can create ulcers. We can create wars. So it's a good idea to harmonize your mind and your thoughts with the heart's desire. So these are fundamental principles. If we just get back to that instead of these ideologies that are actually antithetical to our own connection with each other. Does that make sense?
Oh God, Troy, that makes so much sense. I've actually really met somebody who can articulate what's deep in our hearts. We run a school here. It's a school on Ayurveda. And the very first day, inevitably you're going to have people that have Democratic backgrounds and Republican backgrounds. Some people may be apolitical, but the majority of them are going to have some view. And to be a healer, we always say that we need to find a truth beyond these tribalistic categories, right? And so that each human being has divine light. forgiveness, love, compassion, listening to my brother or sister, just to listen and hear their ideas, discussion, so it's really interesting. We kind of have to break those tribalistic, if someone wants to be a healer, you have to look at a truth beyond that. And I think that we say that in our school, but really I think it's something that we're all evolving into, and society needs to evolve into higher truths and not lower truths. And I really like the fact that you're talking about control mechanisms. The reality of the matter is like government, any major institution, even the university infrastructure, there's so much control that's there, and so some of the things we do is like have internships for youth, or, that come into our ecosystem where they can learn a trade, they can learn something or a component of it without having to go to the, traditional institution. Not saying there's something bad of that. Some people may want to participate in the government process, the political process, or even the university process, but we try to have a higher truth that we all can relate to, because I think control mechanisms come from lower truths, right? I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Most people take it as a given that you have to go into those systems and become a part of it and make a choice and identify yourself on one side. And I think the more that we can get underneath it and outside of it and build systems around it, the healthier, the better chance we have as a people.
In the Vedic age, the radicals were the yogis, were the Vedas, the Ayurveda. There were people that were doing, autopsies on bodies when people thought they were crazy. There were the people that were naked and doing fasts in the forest. And people, most of society usually thinks these people are crazy anyway, right? So generally, I think you kind of, for my own realization, there's always a time that comes in our lives where we have to kind of go outside these boundaries, go into the forest, do the fast for our truths, and I think that's part of the solution, honestly. So we're very happy, and I really love the fact that you're respecting that, hey, there are a lot of things that you could say could be controversial, but you're trying to hold all views, like when you're talking and you're being considerate. And I do appreciate that, because we got to bring everybody along with us, right? For this raising human consciousness is only not a segment of people that can come with us. We need to take everybody with us, right, into that realm. So I love it, man. We really appreciate your vibe.
Yeah, I like to say that the second coming of Christ is when we all rise up to that level. And what did Christ do, right? He healed at will and mind over matter. He could walk on water. And so we're coming to, this is where we're headed as far as the evolution of our consciousness. We're rising above. And politically, I like to call myself, I am apolitical, but people, think that whatever. I call myself an extreme centrist. I have very progressive, liberal ideas in a world beyond money, in a world beyond oil. And then I think God is pretty important. I think families super important, and I think the United States of America, because we have our God-given rights written on a piece of paper, I think it's a very interesting concept. Now, I'm not idealistic about like America's the greatest country in the world. I think there's many aspects of it, and I think that we're holding on to the last vestiges of freedom for the rest of the world. I do think that that's very important, but I also believe in a world beyond borders, passports, police, prisons, etc. And so I do believe that we can live at higher states of consciousness. We're not there yet, right? But I do believe that the society can live at a much higher state of consciousness when we break away from these commercial conduits. We get back to the land, right? I think the people that are having troubles and whether it's prisons or addiction, I think a lot of those people could heal back on the land and heal with real food. I have clients that go to Italy and eat pizza, pasta, and ice cream and lose weight, right? The food is poisoned here. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, we tell our people that are even on this call right now that the Parmigiano cheese, the Parmigiano Reggiano, is that what you say? Is that like it actually is medicine if you buy it from Italy, but when it's manufactured here, it causes inflammation, right? And so there's something interesting about the soil, the earth, the cows, and the villages, and how it's all coming from. But you're never going to agree with everything another human being says, right? But another human being actually giving a damn and saying that, hey, I'm on this planet for human evolution. allowing them their ups and their downs and their explorations as like a global family, you know, in that regard, it's really, really easy to fall in love with you and the kind of like the passion you have to engage with truth as opposed to just be a bystander, you know? So for whatever that's worth, you know.
I was curious to hear, it seems like a lot of your practices come from Vedic traditions, which from your work with Shilajit to Shivambu, is that the word? The urine therapy, to your yoga practice, to a lot of the breathing exercises you do. A lot of it ties back into Vedic traditions, and I'm curious your personal experience in that world, or is it kind of practices that have just sort of found you, or has it been more from a dive into those traditions?
Well, I think, Jeremy, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. And the Taoists and the yogis figured this out a long time ago, right? And so there's basic biology, physiology, and psychology. And when we can wrap our minds around the basics, my mentor in the Amazon rainforest, the great gringo shaman, Scott Peterson, used to like to say, when things go haywire in the world, as they are today, man goes back to the origins. And so, and you see this, some people call me a biohacker as well, but I'm out in the sun. I have a red light therapy device here. It's a tool in the toolbox of the modern day man, right? However, most of my time is spent naked, out in the sun, grounded to the earth, or riding my bicycle, or moving my body in some way. Again, a stagnant body of water turns into a cesspool. Body of motion stays in motion. So I want to be moving all day. I want to be out in the elements. I had an event in a penthouse in downtown Phoenix a couple of days ago, and it was in one of these new buildings, and I could just feel the Wi-Fi in there. And also they had fragrance dispensers in the lobby. I mean, I was being poisoned the second I walked in there. And then the people coming out of the elevator, the level of vibration, you know, everybody had their headphones on, they're glued to their phones. You know, I'm glued to my phone sometimes as well, so I don't want to point the finger too much to other, but, you know, I try and stay into nature as much as possible. And I do like the city centers, don't get me wrong. I've lived in Tokyo, Milan, Paris, New York, Miami. But I like to be outside as much as possible. I like to go back to our nature-based, you know, origins as much as possible. You know, I'm still somewhat of a domesticated human. I'm living in a house, right? I do have a car. And so, but I do believe when things go haywire in the world, man goes back to the origins. I like that. And the yogis and the Taoists figured this out a very, very long time ago. And these are technologies that are effective. They have ballast in reality. They are tools that have incredible application. I'm living proof of them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really connect the most with in how you talk about things is just this back to nature, the simplicity of being in the sun, moving your body, eating clean food. And I feel it's an interesting moment where there's more and more people awakening to these ideas and these practices. I've heard you talk about Jack Kruse. We both really enjoy Jack Kruse and just the way he's reframed people's relationship with the sun. And a lot of what we talk about and what we're doing is just being connected to the natural cycles of life, from rising and going to sleep. And Mitesh talks a lot about the Sunday points of these kind of particularly high vibration moments in the cycle of a day. And I'm wondering your daily just how you set up your day in relation to the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun, and when you do your practices. If you could share a little bit about your own practice in that way.
Yes, ultimately I like to rise and fall with the sun, and so and then, you know, also there's a lot on the internet about like morning routines and practices, and I have to watch it with myself, and this is one of the reasons why I stopped practicing so much Vipassana, was because I was getting angry with myself if I wasn't getting my practices in. And I eventually had to let it go and just, what I told myself is to feel the sensations and vibrations all over my body throughout the day, to be present, to be meditating full time. And we all fall off the train, right? It's a yoga practice, not a yoga perfection. So I got to keep telling myself that, And so, I've had to let some of this stuff go. And I do have some really good practices. I do like breath work. I do like Qigong. And sometimes I do it more than others. The one thing I like about the practices that I have done, there's been time periods in my life, like especially when I was practicing Ashtanga, I taught myself, I learned, yoga. I can still do that today, right? If I wanted to do those practices. But what I have done is I've taken yoga, Qigong. Walking's the best exercise for the human being, right? Walking in the sun is the best exercise. It's the way we're designed to move through time and space. It de-stresses the body. It also puts rhythm and flow into the body. The more rhythm and flow, as above, so below. We have rhythm and flow in the body. We have rhythm and flow in the mind, rhythm and flow in the life. So walking is the best exercise. I like a lot of walking. If I have time to do some stretches, and I do think back bends are very important, especially because we're so hunched over these days. I've just incorporated all of the traditions that I have as much as possible into my moment-to-moment day. If I get too out of my mind, then I'll do breath work first thing in the morning. Sometimes I'll just jump into a cold shower and then do some breath work afterwards. I like to do breath of fire. For me and my personality, because I can get so anxious. So breath of fire really works for me, right? For other people, that can send them into a panic attack. So I've incorporated a lot of these things. I sleep with the sun, but I also like to get 9 hours sleep, right? I'm a 9-hour guy. I like to wake up when I'm rested. It'd be nice if I woke up before the sun every day and 5 p.m. And also, I'm a modern day person with a job and a parent, and I get caught up in working at nighttime as well because of the digital communications that we have. And so instead of beating myself up and saying I should this or I should that, I do my best to make sure my body is rested so I can get back up and I can be fresh and available for other people. The other thing I really like to do, one of the main markers, is to get into the gym, to move my body, to pump some weights, to do some stretching, because that's going to release the serotonin and dopamine, and that is going to prepare me so I'm more present and available for the tasks at hand throughout the day. So that's important. Hydrating the body and getting good nutrients in the body, whether that's a fresh squeezed juice or some organic wheatgrass and spirulina, one of those types of drinks. Some herbs. I like some herbs. I like minerals as well. I like to intermittent fast throughout the day and eat later on in the day. We do slow cooks here, soups and slow cooks, very highly nutritious, farmer direct nutrition. I like to spend as much time as I can with my daughter. She's developing now. She's 14. And so I ride her to and from school on my electric bike type of thing. So there's some basic markers that I have. I like to have enough quiet time, maybe a walk in nature with my dog in the sun. That's like a good marker I like to reach as well. And right now I like the gym because I'm in a harsh environment. It's 115 degrees here for about 3 months out of the year. So the gym serves a purpose. And I do breath work, stretching, whenever I get around to it or incorporate it. I like to be present. That's my waking meditation. How present and peaceful can I be? And if I'm out of balance, well, then it's cold shower, red light therapy, getting into nature, barefoot. There's sharp rocks out here and very pointy cactus type things that you can step on. So I like to do barefoot walking. That is a very powerful meditation. It puts you right into the present moment.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Troy. We're actually, on our platform, we're releasing a mini doc, a little conversation with Troy, and it's really inspiring. It's like great work. So we encourage our members to check that out. And Troy, your mission and vision is just so inspiring, and I think it aligns with why we walk the earth. And so if there's any way, that we could align or help out in your mission or vision, just, let us know. I think we're all in it together for the same cause. So we wish you a lot of love and light, and may your family be prosper and have good health.
Thanks so much, Troy. This was really fun talking again. And I'm excited to share the little film we made with people and kind of frame a little bit of your life story for people.
Well, God bless you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. I love that we are connected, and if I can ever be of service to you guys, I really enjoyed our conversation here. I'm always here to help.
Thank you. Take care, Troy.
Okay. God bless.